After 11 years of teaching, 3 students framed me for SAing them on a field trip I wasn't even on. Later, I found out who set the whole trap to ruin my life. So I went nuclear. Hey Reddit, Monday morning, I got pulled out of my classroom and told 3 students accused me of assault on a field trip. Only problem, I wasn't even on the trip. I walked into Westridge Academy on a Monday morning, expecting coffee, essay grading, and my Civil War unit prep. Instead, I got the words that would nuke my entire career. Principal Aviva was waiting outside my classroom door, like the Grim Reaper in a pantsuit. 3 students accused you of assault during Saturday's field trip. I just stood there holding my laptop bag and travel mug like an idiot, brain buffering like a 2005 Dell trying to run Windows 11. Must have looked like a deer in headlights, because she repeated herself. Slower this time, like I was hard of hearing and not just having my entire reality collapse. I'm 39 years old, and I spent 11 years teaching AP history at this private school. Stellar evaluation, 0 complaints. Parents loved me. Students respected me. I was the guy who wrote recommendation letters that actually got kids into Ivy League schools. Built my whole identity around being a good teacher, and now I'm being told I'm a predator before I've even had my morning coffee. Aviva led me to her office, where the school's attorney was already seated with an outside investigator, folders stacked between them, like they were about to prosecute the Nuremberg trials. 3 female students filed formal complaints alleging you physically assaulted them during the Independence Hall trip on Saturday, Aviva repeated. We need to understand what happened. I finally found my voice. That's literally impossible. I wasn't on that field trip. Dead silence. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Could probably hear my career circling the drain if you listened hard enough. I was scheduled to chaperone, I continued, my voice getting stronger. But I pulled out 3 weeks ago when my father had emergency bypass surgery. I spent all Saturday at Jefferson Medical watching doctors keep him alive after complications from the procedure. My whole family can verify. He was in the ICU. I never left that building. Aviva's expression didn't budge. Westridge had a near miss with a misconduct scandal 2 years earlier. Settled quietly. Board made it clear, next time, act fast, act hard. My name was probably already gone from the staff directory. The school's attorney leaned forward with his best serious lawyer face. Mr. K, we've reviewed the signed chaperone roster from Saturday morning. Your signature appears on the attendance sheet. Bus driver logged 4 adults departing with 32 students. 3 students have provided detailed, consistent accounts of what occurred. The room was shrinking. I could feel it. The walls closing in like something out of a horror movie. Everything I'd built over 11 years was about to come crashing down because of accusations from a trip I never took. I wasn't there, I said, keeping my voice level. Check my phone records, hospital visitor log, credit card statements. I was at Jefferson Medical from 7 until after midnight. My father had complications from bypass surgery. The attorney spoke up, voice professionally neutral like he'd done this 100 times before. Mr. K, we understand this is distressing, but we have mandatory reporting obligations. Police have already been notified. Child Services was informed this morning. Ashley, Kayla, and Eulalie have all given statements describing specific incidents at specific times during the tour. 3 names. 3 students I knew. 3 juniors in my AP history class. Then take them seriously by investigating the actual facts, I said, feeling the anger building but keeping it contained. I have documentation proving I was at a hospital when these alleged assaults happened. Someone signed my name on that roster, but it wasn't me. Someone impersonated me on that trip, or these students are flat out lying. Aviva opened one of her folders, pulling out papers while avoiding eye contact. The students identified you by name and physical description. Ashley says you were wearing a blue Westridge polo and khaki, which matches your typical field trip attire. Kayla described your watch, a silver Seiko with a leather band. Eulalie mentioned your reading glasses, the rectangular frames you wear when reviewing documents. I looked down at my wrist. The Seiko was there. Same as always. Those are generic observations, I said, frustration bleeding into my voice. Anyone who's seen me around school for 5 minutes could describe those things. Half the male teachers here wear polos and khakis on field trips. Half of them have reading glasses. But they can't put me at Independence Hall because I wasn't there. Check the hospital security footage. Check my Easy Pass records. Check my credit card statements. This is a setup and I need to know why someone's doing this to me. The attorney was already reaching for the next folder. My classroom probably had a new lock by now. The school's attorney stood up and slid the suspension paperwork across the desk toward me. Already had that apologetic Undertaker vibe going. Mr. K, we're placing you on immediate administrative leave with pay pending the investigation. We'll need your building access badge, school laptop, and classroom key. A police detective will contact you. I strongly advise you to retain legal counsel. I handed over my badge and keys, while my mind raced through Saturday. Woke up to a call from my brother Thomas at 6:30 in the morning, heart pounding when I saw his name on the screen. Dad had developed an infection following his bypass surgery and was being moved to ICU. I threw on clothes and drove straight to Jefferson Medical, parked in the visitor garage, and spent 16 hours there while doctors worked to stabilize him. My mother, Thomas, my sister Grace, and I took shifts at his bedside, coordinated with medical staff, made decisions about his care, held hands, and waited for news. I had parking garage receipts, text messages with family throughout the day, food purchases from the hospital cafeteria for lunch and dinner, photos I'd taken of Dad in his hospital bed when he'd finally stabilized that evening, time-stamped automatically by my phone with GPS data embedded. Even my best friend Breck had stopped by that morning to check on us. Brought coffee for everyone despite being strapped for cash late. He's basically family. Been around my parents forever. Has this annoying habit of cracking his knuckles when he's anxious. I walked out of Westridge in a fog. Students were arriving for first period, backpacks slung over shoulders, laughing about their weekends like the world wasn't ending. A few glanced at me as I passed. Their expressions shifted from curiosity to something else. Something knowing. Something judgmental. Word travels fast in private schools. These kids text like their lives depend on it. Within hours, everyone would know something serious had happened involving Mr. K. And in environments like this, accusation equals guilt. Doesn't matter if you were literally on camera somewhere else. Doesn't matter if you have receipts. If someone says you did something, you did it. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I called Thomas from the parking lot. He was stunned. Started asking who had access to the chaperone roster, how someone could forge my signature. I told him to start documenting everything while I drove home. Then I called Breck. He went quiet when I told him. Voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. You were literally at the hospital with your dying father. Who would even think to do something like this? I could hear him processing it, cracking his knuckles on the other end of the line. I'll help however I can, he said. I was there that morning. I can verify you never left. I need a lawyer first. When I got home, I spent the afternoon organizing everything chronologically. Built a minute-by-minute timeline of my Saturday with every receipt, every text, every timestamp. If they wanted to prove I was at Independence Hall, they'd have to explain how I appeared on ICU cameras while also being on that tour. I called a lawyer that evening, someone Thomas's wife knew who handled education law cases. He agreed to meet me the next morning. My lawyer was early 60s, precise and methodical, the kind of guy who'd probably been a prosecutor before switching sides. He listened without interrupting, reviewed my documentation, spread it across his desk like evidence in a murder case. You have a comprehensive alibi for your physical location, he said, tapping his pen against the desk. But that doesn't explain how your signature ended up on the chaperone roster, or why 3 students would make specific accusations against you. This suggests either deliberate fabrication by the students, or someone actually impersonated you on the trip. The students are lying, I said, more certain of this than anything in my life. The question is why they decided to coordinate this, and whether anyone helped them plan it. My lawyer made notes in neat, precise handwriting. We need to find out who the other chaperones were. Who would have noticed if someone claiming to be you wasn't actually you? Whether there's security footage from Independence Hall showing who was actually on that tour. Historical sites usually have cameras everywhere these days. He paused, pen hovering. Walk me through your recent interactions with these 3 students. Any conflicts? Any situations where they might feel aggrieved? Any reason at all they might want to hurt you? I gave him the summary. Ashley disputed a B+. Kayla got a 0 after I caught her cheating on an exam. Eulalie's grades tanked during her parents' divorce, and I'd referred her to the school counselor. Standard teacher stuff. Nothing that should have led to this. My lawyer focused on the school administration angle. If someone recruited an impersonator, that's conspiracy. We need evidence connecting them. First thing my lawyer did was send a preservation letter to Westridge, the bus company, and Independence Hall. Certified mail, time-stamped, receipts for everything. Demanded they retain all records, footage, logs, and rosters related to Saturday's trip. Made it clear destroying evidence would result in severe legal consequence. Then we hit our first wall. My lawyer called me that afternoon, frustration bleeding through his usual calm. Jefferson Medical won't release the security footage without a subpoena. Hospital policy? They cited HIPAA concerns about other patients visible in the footage. How long will that take? Could be 2 weeks to get a judge to sign off. Maybe longer if they push back. 2 weeks? My career is dying by the hour. There's more. His voice dropped. They only retain footage for 21 days before it's overwritten. We're already at day 3. If there are any delays, any bureaucratic snags, that footage could be gone before we get our hands on it. The clock was ticking. The one piece of evidence that could definitively prove I never left that hospital, and it had an expiration date. My lawyer filed an emergency motion that night, argued exigent circumstances. The prosecutor initially opposed it, said he wasn't convinced the footage was relevant enough to justify expedited proceedings. We had to wait 3 days for a hearing. 3 days of my alibi slowly being erased frame by frame. Then the next problem landed. My lawyer called me the following morning, his voice tight. The school has information about your father's condition, specific details. They know he's in Jefferson, know about the infection, know you've been stressed. They claim you've been emotionally volatile lately. My stomach dropped. I never told them any of that. Someone did. Someone gave them ammunition to build a narrative that you're unstable. I knew instantly. My mother. She'd been trying to help since the accusations came out. Called the school that morning, crying, trying to explain that I was a good person, that my father was sick, that I'd been under so much pressure lately. She'd handed them everything they needed to paint me as a time bomb waiting to explode. When I confronted her, she broke down. I was trying to help. I thought if they understood what you've been going through. She didn't get it. In their minds, stressed plus sick father plus pressure equaled motive. She'd given them context to make the accusations seem plausible. My lawyer sent a letter demanding to know who provided this information without authorization. He also made everyone in my family sign an agreement that nobody talks to the school or police except through him. 0 exceptions. The police contacted my lawyer the next day requesting an interview. We met at the precinct with 2 detectives. The lead was mid-40s, seasoned. His partner was younger, sharp-eyed. I walked them through my timeline. Same evidence I'd already documented. Visitor logs, receipts, texts, time-stamped photos. The lead detective examined the evidence carefully. This documentation shows you were at Jefferson Medical, but we need to understand the discrepancy with the school records. Someone else signed my name. I withdrew from chaperoning 3 weeks ago. His partner asked about my relationships with the 3 students. I explained the grade disputes, the phone incident, the parental pressure, laid out every interaction that might be relevant. The lead detective looked skeptical. 3 teenage girls don't typically coordinate false assault allegations against a teacher over grades. That's extremely serious. What would motivate them? I didn't have a good answer yet, but someone had motivated them, and I was starting to form a theory. Then came the moment that almost broke me. His partner pulled out a printout, and her expression shifted to something colder. Mr. K, we have your phone's location data from Saturday. It shows you were in the vicinity of Independence Hall between 10:47 and 11:23 a.m. My heart stopped. That was impossible. I hadn't left the hospital. My lawyer leaned forward. That can't be right. We have hospital documentation showing him there. Documentation that anyone could fabricate, the lead detective said. Receipts, photos, text messages. All of that can be faked. Cell tower triangulation doesn't lie, Mr. K. Your phone pinged 3 towers near Independence Hall during the exact window when these alleged assaults occurred. The room felt like it was spinning. I knew I hadn't left that hospital. I knew it in my bones. But they had data. Hard data. The kind juries believe. We also have a witness statement, his partner continued. One of the parent chaperones provided a sworn statement this morning. She says she saw you on the trip, described your polo, your glasses, said she spoke with you briefly near the entrance. My lawyer's face went pale. I'd never felt more trapped in my life. The lead detective leaned back. Here's where we are. 3 students say you assaulted them. A parent volunteer says she saw you there. Your phone puts you at the scene. You claim you were at a hospital, but we don't have footage to verify that yet. And frankly, even if we get it, a good prosecutor will argue you could have left for a few hours without being noticed. His partner's expression was almost sympathetic. Almost. The DA is reviewing the case. Given the evidence, he's inclined to move forward with charges. This is insane, I said, my voice cracking for the first time. I was with my dying father. I never left that building. He slid a document across the table. The DA authorized me to make you an offer. Resign from Westridge quietly. No criminal charges filed. The allegations stay sealed. You walk away, start over somewhere else. Everyone moves on. I stared at the paper like it was a snake about to bite me. You want me to admit guilt for something I didn't do. We want to resolve this efficiently, he said. Save everyone the trauma of a trial. Save those girls from testifying. Save your family from seeing your name dragged through the press. My lawyer put his hand on my arm. Don't answer that. I looked at the paper, then back at the detective. No. We walked out of that precinct with one priority. Emergency motion hearing was tomorrow. Get the hospital footage or fight this thing blind. My mind was racing through theories. Montrose. Assistant principal for student affairs. There was one person at Westridge who'd had significant conflict with me recently. Who had access to administrative systems? Who understood field trip procedures inside and out? Who might have reason to want me gone? 6 months earlier, Montrose had pushed for a policy reducing academic penalties for first-time plagiarism. What he didn't tell anyone was why. 3 major donor families had kids facing plagiarism charges. Those families made it clear that their 7-figure annual contributions depended on reasonable outcomes. I opposed the policy publicly. My opposition rallied other teachers, and the policy got defeated. The donor families pulled their funding. Montrose got blamed. His contract renewal was suddenly under review. This wasn't just revenge for embarrassing him. I was the reason his career was hanging by a thread. He needed me gone before the board decided he was the real problem. Montrose supervised field trip coordination, had access to the chaperone roster kept in the main office, had my signature on file from years of permission slips and expense reports, knew I'd withdrawn from the trip, could have forged my signature, and could have recruited someone to be there in my place. My lawyer was intrigued when I shared this theory. If Montrose helped these students fabricate allegations and recruited someone as an accomplice, that's conspiracy, fraud, witness tampering. But we need evidence. 3 days of legal back and forth. Prosecutor stalling, my lawyer pushing, judge weighing whether my alibi was worth preserving. At 4:47 p.m. on day 3, she ruled. Motion granted. Hospital had 48 hours to produce the footage. Then came the gut punch. Main ICU entrance camera was down for maintenance between 9:15 and 10:45 a.m. Saturday. Right during the window I would have needed to slip out and return. The other cameras showed me in the building throughout the day. But that 90-minute gap? Prosecution would drive a truck through it. The footage helped. It didn't prove I never left. We needed something else. The next 2 weeks taught me how fast you become radioactive. Neighborhood Facebook group lit up asking if that teacher still lived nearby. 40 comments before deletion. Most not in my defense. Colleagues crossed the street. Parents wouldn't make eye contact. The court of public opinion doesn't wait for evidence. Then the forensic examiner's report came back, and it was the first good news I'd received since this nightmare started. The signature on the chaperone roster was not mine. I read that line 3 times. Let it sink in. Handwriting analysis showed significant differences in letter formation, pressure patterns, and spacing compared to my authenticated signatures on other school documents. Someone had attempted to forge my signature, but hadn't replicated it accurately enough to fool expert examination. Close, but not close enough. The prosecutor called my lawyer with the news. The signature is fraudulent. That changes everything. Someone signed Mr. K onto that trip knowing he wouldn't actually be there. We need to find out who had access to that roster and who benefited from framing him. The hospital security footage was more complicated than we'd hoped, but ultimately conclusive. The footage didn't just show me arriving at 7:13 a.m. It showed me repeatedly throughout the day on different cameras, checking in at security, taking the elevator, in the ICU waiting area, walking to the cafeteria, back in the waiting area. Different angles, different timestamps, continuous presence. But that maintenance gap from 9:15 to 10:45 still loomed. The prosecution could argue I'd slipped out during that window. Then my lawyer's digital forensics expert found the final proof. The cafeteria camera had a timestamp of 10:22 a.m., showing me buying coffee. The ICU waiting room camera showed me sitting with my family at 10:38 a.m. The gap in the entrance camera didn't matter. I was on other cameras during the exact window my phone pinged at Independence Hall. The footage also showed something that made my stomach drop. Breck, my best friend. I had to watch it twice before I believed what I was seeing. Arriving at 10:15 a.m., walking into the ICU waiting area, where I'd left my phone charging on the table. He picked it up, casual as anything, and walked out of the building at 10:18 a.m. with it in his pocket. He returned at 11:31 a.m. and placed the phone back where he'd found it, left my watch on the table beside it. Smooth as you please. I watched that footage in my lawyer's office, watched my best friend pocket my phone like it was nothing, watched him walk out of that hospital while my father was fighting for his life, watched him return and slip it back like he was just borrowing a charger. That morning at the hospital, when Breck showed up with coffee, I'd been checking on Dad. My phone was charging at the table in the waiting area. I came back later and it was still there. I never even noticed it had been moved. That explained the location ping. Breck had taken my phone to Independence Hall to create a digital trail. My own best friend had helped frame me. The detectives interviewed the other chaperones. 2 were parent volunteers, unfamiliar with staff. 1 was a junior faculty member who'd only been at Westridge a year. The parent who'd given the sworn statement identifying me was brought back in. Confronted with the hospital footage and the forged signature, her confidence crumbled. I thought it was him, she admitted. He had the same build, the glasses, the polo. He was standing near the entrance when we arrived. I said hello and he nodded. I didn't look that closely. Everyone was wrangling students. Did you have an actual conversation with him? Did he speak to you? No, he just nodded. Stayed near the back the whole time. Would you say you saw his face clearly enough to make a positive identification? Long pause. I saw someone who looked like what I expected Mr. K to look like. I can't say I saw his face clearly, not from 30 feet away. Her sworn statement, the one that had nearly buried me, collapsed under basic scrutiny. She'd seen a polo and glasses and assumed. That's all it took to almost destroy a man's life. The junior faculty member's statement was even more damning. She told police she'd never actually seen me on the trip. She'd seen someone wearing a Westridge polo and khakis who stayed near the back of the tour group, but she'd never gotten a clear look at his face. Said he kept cracking his knuckles constantly. Breck's nervous habit, the one tell he couldn't hide. I'd noticed it for years, but never thought twice about it. The detectives showed her a photo lineup that included my picture and 5 similar-looking men. She couldn't identify me with certainty. Said we all looked alike with the glasses and build. When shown a photo of Breck, her reaction was immediate. That could definitely be the person. The height is right, and the knuckle thing. He kept doing that during the tour. I remember thinking it was annoying. Police brought Montrose in for questioning. He initially denied everything, claimed he'd spent Saturday at home working on administrative reports. But his phone's location data showed he'd been near Independence Hall during the field trip. Technology doesn't lie. Montrose requested a lawyer. His attorney contacted the prosecutor the next day offering cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. Montrose admitted to forging my signature and recruiting Breck to impersonate me. Claimed he'd done it as a reality check to show me what false accusations felt like after I'd opposed the plagiarism policy. Like that was a reasonable justification for trying to destroy someone's life. But when pressed about the student's allegations, Montrose claimed ignorance. Said he'd arranged the impersonation, but hadn't coordinated the assault claims. The students must have fabricated those independently. The prosecutor wasn't buying it. 3 students don't spontaneously make detailed assault allegations coinciding with your scheme. Either your accomplice assaulted them while pretending to be Mr. K, or you coordinated false reports. Breck was brought in next. Faced with the hospital footage showing him taking my phone and the chaperone's identification of his nervous habit, he cracked within 20 minutes. Tough guy lasted about as long as wet paper. Admitted Montrose had approached him 2 weeks before the trip. Breck was behind on rent, credit cards maxed. Montrose offered him $5,000 to show up at Independence Hall wearing a Westridge polo and khakis, stay in the back, avoid photos, and leave before anyone could get a good look at his face. Montrose told him to carry my phone so the location data would match. The watch. Breck had asked to borrow it during his hospital visit that Saturday morning. Said his had stopped, and he had somewhere to be later. I handed it over without thinking. He returned it when he came back with my phone. I found it on the table later and just put it back on, never suspecting a thing. Why would I question my best friend? Breck swore he never touched any students, just showed up, stayed quiet, and left, which meant the assault allegations were entirely fabricated. Montrose negotiated for 2 days before finally admitting to the full scope. He'd approached the 3 students individually over the preceding weeks. Students he knew had conflicts with me, told them I'd been too harsh, too inflexible, too damaging to their futures. But he didn't just plant anger. He promised safety, told them the system never punishes students who come forward, said the school would handle it quietly and protect them as victims, coached them that their parents' money made them untouchable, said even if something went wrong, they'd be treated as confused kids who got manipulated by a predatory teacher. 0 risk guaranteed. Then he added the hook. You're not just getting revenge. You're protecting future girls from a teacher who gets too physical, made them feel like heroes, not conspirators. Then, he laid out the plan. He would create a situation where they could make allegations that would end my career. He'd arrange for someone to impersonate me, creating confusion about where I actually was. They'd claim I'd assaulted them during the trip. The allegations wouldn't need to be proven in court. Private schools respond to accusations to protect their reputation. Even if charges were eventually dropped, I'd be finished at Westridge. The scandal would follow me anywhere. Revenge disguised as student advocacy. Destruction wrapped in victimhood. The 3 students were brought in for questioning with their parents and lawyers present. Ashley broke first. Confronted with Montrose's confession and my hospital alibi, she admitted the assault allegations were fabricated. Montrose had approached her after her grade dispute, sympathized with her frustration, suggested I was the kind of teacher who damaged students' futures over minor issues. She'd believed she was justified, because in her mind, I'd wronged her first by not giving her the grade she deserved. A B+ was apparently enough justification to destroy a man's career. These kids really do live in a different reality. Kayla gave a similar account. Montrose told her I was known for being unreasonably strict, suggested the field trip provided an opportunity to teach me a lesson about respecting students. She'd gone along because she was angry about the 0 on her exam. Eulali's involvement was more complicated. Montrose had manipulated her differently, told her I'd spoken to other faculty about her parents' divorce in ways that violated her privacy, said I'd described her as emotionally unstable. None of it was true. I'd never discussed Eulali's personal situation with anyone beyond the counseling staff. Montrose fabricated the entire premise to manipulate a vulnerable girl. The criminal charges came down swiftly. Montrose: identity theft, forgery, conspiracy to make false reports, witness tampering. Breck: conspiracy, identity fraud, accessory to making false reports. The 3 students, charged as juveniles with conspiracy and making false reports. The charges against me were dismissed immediately. The prosecutor issued a statement exonerating me completely. 2 weeks after the charges dropped, my lawyer scheduled a mediation meeting, called it a settlement conference. I called it the reckoning. Everyone was there. The principal looking like she'd aged 10 years. The school's attorney sweating through his suit jacket. A board member who looked like she'd rather be literally anywhere else. The 3 families with their expensive lawyers. I sat at one end of the table and said almost nothing. My lawyer ran the show. He started by laying out what discovery would reveal if we went to trial. Internal emails where the principal discussed containing the situation before verifying I'd actually been on the trip. Board messages about reputation management. A text chain between the school's attorney and the outside investigator about getting ahead of this before anyone checked my alibi. They'd presumed guilt, moved against me without confirming I'd even been present at the location where assaults allegedly occurred, and they'd put it in writing. Geniuses. The board member went pale. The attorney started dabbing his forehead with a handkerchief. The principal looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. My lawyer dropped 3 documents on the table, printed emails, highlighted passages, smoking guns. These become public record the moment we file. Every parent in your community sees how you handled this. Every prospective family learns you accused a teacher of assault without checking if he was in the building. The school's lawyer tried to negotiate, offered a number that would have set me up for years, offered a confidentiality agreement, offered to make this all go away quietly. My lawyer looked at me. I shook my head. No NDA. Non-negotiable. Their lawyer pushed back. We can increase the settlement substantially if your client agrees to confidentiality. My lawyer didn't blink. He'll take less money to keep his voice. That's when the begging started. Ashley's mother, the same woman who'd sent me those demanding emails about grades, was crying. Couldn't even look at me. Please, she's just a kid. She made a mistake. Please don't ruin her future over this. I sat there and let them beg. Didn't yell. Didn't give speeches. Didn't even change my expression. My lawyer laid out my terms. Public retraction to every parent who'd heard about my suspension. Independent investigators' report released with names documented. Full legal fees plus damages. Policy reforms with an outside compliance monitor. Employment consequences for staff who'd participated. Formal clearance letters for any future employer. The principal's face went gray. If we agree to this, I'm done. My career here is over. My lawyer didn't blink. You should have checked if he was even there. They slid the final offer across the table. $2,750,000, paid in 10 business days. Still no NDA. Still public retraction. After my lawyer got his cut and taxes did their usual violence, I didn't end up rich, but I ended up free. The meeting ended with them realizing they couldn't buy silence. They could pay, they could apologize, but they couldn't make me shut up about what they'd done. I walked out of that room feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not happiness exactly, more like the satisfaction of watching people who'd tried to destroy me realize the bill had come due. Montrose's trial took 8 months. His defense tried arguing impulsive judgment, but prosecutors had weeks of planning documented. The student recruitment, the manipulation, the promises of safety. All 3 students testified against him as part of their plea deals, describing how he'd approached them individually, sympathized with their grievances, framed the scheme as protecting future students from a toxic teacher. Montrose showed zero remorse on the stand, claimed I'd undermined his authority, and the false allegations were justified. Jury took 6 hours. Guilty on all charges. 4 years in prison plus additional penalties for endangering minors. Breck got 18 months in county lockup. Dumb muscle always gets the lighter sentence. Still watched him get sentenced without being able to look at me once. The students got probation and community service as juveniles, but the real damage came from dominoes I never touched. All 3 expelled from Westridge. School tried calling it voluntary withdrawals, until my lawyer's retraction letter made the circumstances clear. Ashley lost student council president. Kayla got dropped from varsity lacrosse. Eulalie's early admission to Northwestern got rescinded when someone on their admissions committee read about the case. Now their college applications require disclosure of juvenile adjudication. Try explaining. I helped frame my teacher for assault in a personal statement. The civil suits hit fast. Ashley's mother tried fighting it, went to a local news site calling me vindictive and claiming I was targeting children. My lawyer filed for expedited discovery, and she folded within a week when she realized we'd be deposing Ashley under oath about every text, every conversation with Montrose. Settled for more than the original ask. The other families watched that play out and didn't bother resisting. Settled for substantial amounts with public apologies included. Ashley's mother acknowledging her daughter's grade dispute didn't justify false allegations. Kayla's father admitting he'd contributed to his daughter's entitlement by pressuring teachers. Eulalie's parents accepting responsibility for not teaching their daughter to verify accusations before participating in conspiracies. Westridge took the hit they deserved. Several parents withdrew their kids, reputation damaged for years. Principal resigned under board pressure. Announcement tried saying she was pursuing other opportunities until my lawyer reminded them the retraction language required accurate characterization, revised to mention administrative failures. School's attorney got replaced. New leadership implemented policy reforms on how allegations get investigated before action, complete with outside monitor reviewing compliance for years. 6 months after everything settled, I drove to the county facility where Breck was serving his time. The lawsuits were done. The settlements were paid. Westridge had its new policies. My name was cleared in every database that mattered. Everything was handled except one thing. Metal detector, ID check, 30-minute wait, in a room that smelled like industrial cleaner and bad decision. They called my name and led me through 2 locked doors to a visiting area with bolted tables and plexiglass dividers. Breck walked in wearing county-issued orange, 20 pounds lighter than the last time I'd seen him. His hair was buzzed short. Eyes had that flat, tired look people get when they realize the consequences are real and permanent. He sat down trying to project confidence he didn't have anymore. I didn't come for closure. I came because he needed to hear it from me, face to face, without lawyers or courts between us. Thanks for coming, he started, voice quieter than I remembered. I know I don't deserve... Stop, he stopped. I didn't come for an apology, I said. I came because I wanted to hear you say it without a lawyer coaching you. Long pause. He cracked his knuckles. Old habit. The same one that got him identified by the chaperone. I was desperate, he finally said. Rent was 3 months behind. Credit cards maxed. Montrose offered $5,000 and I didn't think it would go this far. You took my phone out of the ICU waiting room while my father was dying. I know. You borrowed my watch that morning. Asked to borrow it like we were still friends. I'm sorry. You carried my phone to Independence Hall. Created a digital trail to put me at a crime scene. Came back and put it exactly where you found it. He looked down at his hands. And when the cops showed me location data putting me near that building, I continued, keeping my voice level, when they told me my phone pinged those towers during the exact window those girls claimed I assaulted them, I thought I was losing my mind. Thought maybe I'd had some kind of psychotic break and couldn't remember leaving the hospital. I didn't know they were going to say you assaulted them, Breck said. Montrose just told me to show up, stay quiet, leave early. That's it. I swear I didn't... You knew exactly what you were doing. I leaned forward slightly, not aggressive. Just close enough that he couldn't avoid looking at me. You showed up at the hospital that morning with coffee for everyone. Played the concerned friend. I introduced you to the nurses. You shook hands with my brother. You stood there in that waiting room while my mother cried about whether Dad would make it through the day. And the whole time you were planning to steal my phone and help frame me for assault. It wasn't supposed to. You wore my watch. My polo. Stood in the back of that tour group cracking your knuckles because you can't help yourself. You created reasonable doubt about my alibi while I sat with my dying father. For $5,000. Breck's jaw worked, but nothing came out. I lost 11 years of my career in one morning, I said. My name was in police reports. Parents crossed the street when they saw me. Colleagues I'd worked with for years wouldn't make eye contact. I spent 2 weeks thinking I might go to prison for something I didn't do because my best friend needed rent money. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You don't get to be sorry. You get to be caught. The guard called 2 minutes. Breck looked like he wanted to say something else. Something that would make this better. There wasn't anything. I stood up. You weren't my friend, I said. You were just the closest person to the knife. I walked out and didn't look back. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.